racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car, and that's it. It's kind of magic.
What is it about racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car, and that's it. It's kind of magic.
What is it about racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car, and that's it. It's kind of magic.
What is it about racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car, and that's it. It's kind of magic.
What is it about racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car, and that's it. It's kind of magic.
What is it about racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car, and that's it. It's kind of magic.
What is it about racing that you love so much?
Well, sometimes when I'm driving, I can be going so fast, and everything else is moving so slow, and it's like most of the world just falls away. It's just you and the car.
And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our Fuji 2-hour endurance put on by the Jamaica Simulation Racing and GT Panama. This afternoon, this evening, depending on where you're watching, we do have quite a doozy for you here, as we have one of the infamous tracks on the wet calendar, the Fuji circuit. We have a 2-hour endurance event starting as early as 4 a.m. 5 a.m. is it now on the servo. The race time should be beginning at about 5:30 in the morning. So we are here in Japan, and the drivers are ready for their test to their track knowledge. You're going to be enjoying it. As you see now, we have the GT3 class out and about and ready to get rearing. I will get all of my notes ready for us. We just finished up the driver briefing, had all the drivers coming to a conclusion. Unfortunately, half of the grid will not be making it this evening due to some either weather complications or just having other things pop up on their timeline. So unfortunate to be missing them, but nonetheless I am excited for who is here. We have who missed our first endurance unfortunately due to not feeling so well, Mr. Estefano Barrero, and definitely somebody who will be putting on quite a show here. He was the first to start his lap, and as you see him there entering back into the pits for some reason, not entirely sure. But that being said, we'll just take a quick look at Mr. Kurt Moss, who will be the first person to start his hot lap. We are noticing 1 and 2 other drivers entering back into the server, so hopefully they will rejoin sooner than later. But that being said, we still have more drivers to come, and we will ride along board now with Mr. Massive as we have the session begin. And there goes Mr. Massive being the first. These are cold tires, and please also be reminded that those tires will have the there are no tire blankets, so it does take a lap or two to get them up to temperature, and the drivers will be finding that out sooner than later. But that being said, I am your host, Mr. Steven Stewart, looking very forward to this track. I love this track, if I'm being honest. We are driving alongside Mr. Ramos in his debut race here at the JSRA. Unfortunately, we had a late comer there in the LMH class jumping on. As the drivers should know, the qualifying session is split into 2 sessions here this evening, as we will have a 50-minute session for the GT3 class, which has already started. We've elapsed about 4 minutes so far in the session, and then after the 15 minutes the LMH classes will go out. But that being said, we are riding along here with the Panama driver, Mr. Ramiro Dominguez, who is unfortunately going to be missing his other partners in action, Vincent Da Silva, Rafael Rivas, Derek and Armando, as the 4 will not be able to partake this evening. So unfortunately for him, he will be, well, he does have his teammate Mr. Javier Brandao, who is definitely one of the quicker drivers as well, so we should see a little bit of help for him coming in the next few stages in that Honda NSX. But Ramiro driving the BMW tank, as some may call it, something that I'm sure he will be enjoying. The LMH cars will actually be taking or avoiding especially that BMW, as that car will definitely throw a little bit of extra drama here in the mix, and will be a tank, as the drivers have called it. But here comes here we watch Mr. Roher Robinson, who is now sitting in P3, has shown pace, and you know him especially to be one of the sandbaggers, but he is currently sitting P4 behind his friend Mr. Roger Keller of Switzerland. So I'm sure the driver will definitely be trying to improve on his time. Not looking entirely rapid in Sector 1 or Sector 2. Did set a 140.991, but there goes Javier Brandao now with a 139.640. Estefano Barrero immediately taking that pole step, provisional pole, as we see, with a 138.213. So he's looking like the biggest competitor. Mr. Massive is a rapid driver as well, currently sits P6, but that should have been his first lap, and I'm sure he will be trying to get those tires up to temperature and see if he can mount an attack on the Colombian or the Panama driver in and ahead of him. Joel Santamaria as well. He, I believe, is in his debut race here, so I am looking forward to seeing what he can put out on the market. But Estefano Barrera looking like the man to beat this evening. Jaden Harrison was one who was supposed to be in the GT3 class, but at the last minute decided he saw some competition in the LMH class, so he unfortunately, seeing even Dominic Charles there in the chat and a few other drivers, notably Mr. Santino, Franco of Argentina, and Zonda Racing, my apologies, who did take the GT3 class from the first round by storm and won by I think an insurmountable 1 minute ahead of his competition. I'm sure he will have his fans back out and stunting ready for him this evening. But that being said, he is in the LMH class this evening, and we'll definitely look forward to see what he can bring to the picture as the drivers will be going out. Javier Brandel now 139.636. He's only 400ths quicker than his teammates, so I'm sure Ramiro there will be trying his best to try and improve, but so is Mr. Massive as he comes down now the start finish line. Will he improve on his time? And yes, he does, immediately up into P2 with a 139.447, so he is getting temperature in those tires. That Honda NSX is looking very rapid, slightly unstable based on what we heard, but you know, instability does bring a little bit of speed from time to time, so he will definitely be enjoying the pace advantage of that Honda NSX. But there he goes, 3/10 quicker in sector 1. But as he's speaking, Estefano is already setting a purple sector 1, so he's looking even more, well, looking even quicker. I believe he's the only driver so far to see the 137s, so will he be the one to beat this evening? Anything can happen, and the drivers will be tackling it out. Kurt Must is looking like the biggest competitor to Mr. Barrera in front, but Estefano setting a purple sector 1, purple sector 2, and he will definitely be enjoying the latter stages of that sector as he's heading down now into the final corner. We'll just take a look quickly. He's 300ths up in sector 1, 300ths up in sector 2, gets a very clean exit on the run now on the start finish stretch. Where will this put him? I'm going to say about a 138.0, as he is still slightly even improving on his time. And there he goes, and I was very much so incorrect by about a 10th, and 37.907 is the time to beat. That is provisional pole. 5 minutes do remain in this session. There goes Kurt Must to finish off on 39.080, so 4/10 quicker than the next competitor behind him, but still about 1.1 second behind Estefano, and that will be the time to beat, 137.907. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, please be reminded that the LMH class will be qualifying in about 5 minutes time. So at the moment, these drivers are, the GT3 class is out. It's 15 minutes for the GT3, 15 minutes for the LMH. Unfortunately, again, we are missing some key drivers here this evening, but nonetheless, we will enjoy who is here. The competition will still be very fierce, and we'll have the LMH classes going out for their qualifying session. But as they are on their ways and tiptoes to get ready and prepare, we do have the GT3 class up and running. The Swiss driver Roger Killer now hitting the gas pedal to see if he can improve and take away the top 4 at least. And there he goes, passing the start finish line with a 140.189. Looked relatively good in sector 1 and 2, but then sector 3 was just where he lost all of his time. Kimani Eastman as well, he did look very good in the practice session all week, so he's clearly not finding the pace that he needs as yet, at least. But he's now sitting in P8. That would have been second to that would be P7, no, P8, my apologies. So he will be definitely trying to see where he can improve, because he was in the 39s if I do remember correctly, and I'm sure that's a time that he would love to see. But as we say that, Ramiro Dominguez 3/10 up in sector 1, looking like he can maybe improve to tackle the 2 in front of him. 3/10 up in sector 1, and well, he's about halfway through sector 2 now. and he'll be coming around this bend right here to end up finishing sector 3. Where will this time put him? He is looking not too bad, as a matter of fact, as he now passes the line to end sector 2 and 6/10 up on his personal best. Will this time be good enough to take at least P3 away from his teammate in front of him in Javier Brandao? But that being said, again, still improving in sector 3, so will this be his time to even contest with Mr. Kurt Moss in P2? But now the battle is on for the podium to begin, and Mr. Ramiro Dominguez on the start finish line in that always beautifully themed GT Panama race car, but that one is the BMW, and there he goes in P4, about a 10th off of his teammates, so he still has a little bit of work to go. Kurt Moss as well, 3 minutes remaining, 2.5 minutes remaining in this session. Qualifying will begin for the LMH class in only a moment's time, and the drivers are going to be shooting it out for the next few moments. Now the driver that we are watching with a 139.784 and is improving, we know Mr. Robinson has won to leave the sandbags in the car up until the final moment. He comes around the start, finished straight, and this will be his run down to the start finish line to see where he can be placed. He is currently P6, and I'm sure we'd love to see at least 2 or 3 positions further, but there he goes, 139.7, and he's about a 10th off of Mr. Keller in front of him, so he still has a lot of work to go. But this will be his final lap to see where he can place in this qualifying session. Please be reminded, once the 15 minutes begins, the LMH cars can head out, so they are antsy and waiting and ready to get going. And as we see, the drivers are now finishing up their final laps. But once that 15-minute mark goes, the GT3 cars cannot be starting a new lap, so they will be taking their time. Well, they will be trying to finish this up as quickly as possible in the next few moments. But as we speak, we ride along with Mr. Rolando Ramos, who is not improving either. Will he be able to get another lap in? Maybe it is possible, but once he comes around the line, 20 seconds to go, yep, he should be beating it right on time. And then Kurt Moss, this should be his final lap as well to finish up this session, but he doesn't even look like he's improving necessarily. And with 7 seconds to go, Mr. Ramos finished this lap on time, and that looks like his final lap. He did catch it right on time, but that should be his qualifying ended. There he goes, and that puts him in P7. Kurt Moss there as well, finishing off Estefano already in the pits. Rohey Robinson is the last driver, or 2 more drivers, my apologies, to try and take a position away. Kimani Eastman right behind him now, but there goes Rohey Robinson. Did not improve on his time and will pull to the side and call quits. Kimani Eastman as well, looking like he'll just drive into the pits and finish his session off as well. That being said, we now have the LMH classes out and about. Santino Franco, the winner of the GT3 class last season. What an epic battle it was for him, as he just dominated, and he is in the LMH classes for this evening. We have Jaden Harrison as well, who is going to definitely try and put on some battle, some moves this evening. We just saw him in the forefront there in front, so we'll ride along board with him in a moment's time. But right now, Santino is the man to beat. Jaden Harrison and Dominic Charles were the 2 in the last who put on an absolute spectacle of a battle, leaving it up until the last minute to find some battles and fights there. So we'll definitely look forward to who, well, especially that battle between Jaden, who did win the last LMH class and win the last GT, well, the last LMH class at the Le Mans circuit. So there is Jaden warming his tires as best as possible, so clearly this won't be his fastest lap, or fastest lap attempt at least. But there he goes, already being dismantled by the cars behind him, but still taking his time out to make sure as much time can be gained, as much heat can be gained in those tires as well. Sector 1 obviously being taken very rapidly by Mr. Santino, and I believe that's Ignacio right behind him. Jaden Harrison's teammate for this evening as well is Mr. Michael McNamee, so we will ride along board with him in only a moment's time. Jaden there still, well, pushing now and looking very good in Sector 2, as you could imagine. As the Sector 1, he was warming his tires, so we'll ride along board with him for the duration of this session. Santino though did get the purple Sector 1, so these two clearly are already going to be best friends for this evening. As you can see, Mr. Santino there in the background, and there is Jaden Harrison taking a purple Sector 2 and looking very rapid so far. Santino should be coming on board to dismantle, well, looking like he's dismantling Sector 3, but we'll continue to ride along board and watch to see what happens there. But these two look like they're going to be very good friends and acquaintances for this event. Unfortunately, we are going to be missing a few drivers, key drivers. Daniel Velez of Noba Racing as well will be missing out, unfortunately, because of some equipment deficiencies, unfortunately. And there goes Jaden Harrison on provisional pole, and I'm sure will be, well, there he is, followed by Santino with a 1:30.857. so the times are still coming out. Michael McNamee is the next driver with a purple Sector 1 so far, so Jaden Harrison's teammate looking very good, the two driving for RB. And no, ladies and gentlemen, that is not Red Bull, that is Jaden Harrison's racing team, the Racing Birds. So we will definitely enjoy and see what will happen. That looked like he might have gotten a little bit wide there. Santino is in the pits, unfortunately, not sure what's happening there for him. But Jaden Harrison now 6/10 up in Sector 1, looking very rapid again in Sector 2, so I'm sure he's enjoying himself out there, and we'll ride along board with him in only a moment's time. But as we see Mr. Matteo Restrepo in, well, currently P15, but has not set an indicative lap as yet, and he will be pushing to see where he can end up in this qualifying lap. But now we will see Michael McNamee come around the final corner. I believe he invalidated his lap, so will this one count? Not entirely sure. But there you can see him still warming his tires. There are no tire blankets, ladies and gentlemen. So did that time stick? It did, but 1:35, not a very good time nonetheless. So yeah, we'll continue to ride along board there. But Jaden Harrison now on pole, 1:28.265. Santino Franco Davicio is now sitting and just waiting, maybe getting a little bit of space there for himself and the other drivers. Looks like he might have inhibited that car behind him. Who was that? And that was one of his teammates, so unfortunate there. But we'll continue to check for what just happened. But yeah, just getting a little bit of space there for himself, and I'm sure it will be running. Estefano is now, well, sorry, my apologies, Estefano is in the GT3 class. So as it stands, only Jaden Harrison, Santino Franco Davicio, and Matteo Restrepo are the three who have set a indicative time for this session. We're noticing Michael McNamee looking very good as well. He should be in the 29s, 30 or low 30s by time qualifying has ended. Maybe you'll hear me and want to stick it to me and put in a little extra bit of time there. Maybe he's been sandbagging as well. He's been on the podium several times here at the JSRA. Will this be another time for him? But only time will tell, as he has blast down the start finish stretch, and there he goes heading down now. This will be his first indicative lap, looking very good as a matter of fact. not too far off the pace, and there he goes with a 128, and there he goes sticking it to me, puts it in P2, and as well as Matteo there with a 131. He sits now in P4. So the two drivers of Jamaica sitting in P1 and P2 of Jaden Harrison and Michael McNamee. Santino is the driver that we're going to be watching. Can he dismantle the drivers ahead of him? He was the quickest man of the week with a 1 minute 26 actually. So he's the one that we're going to be watching to see if he can throw a little bit of extra drama and mess up these drivers' evenings and just put a little bit of extra power in the mix. But there he goes, purple sector 1, 600ths up on the fastest lap so far. Jaden Harrison still there trying to see if he can improve and maybe get into the 27s. But Santino there just enjoying that lap as best as possible. Hopefully he can improve and take back that P1 or P2 position from the two Jamaican drivers. He is improving on his personal best, but still locking his brakes there. That could be just a servo giving a bit of a glitch, but nonetheless comes around to finish off sector 2, and he is looking very rapid. That's a 33.76768. My apologies. He's only 200ths up in sector 1 on the fastest lap of the race so far. So I'm sure he will be definitely trying to see where he can come in that podium position. 26s was his fastest lap of the race, and that sector 3 was where he found all of the pace. So will he be able to catch back up and get back that time? Only time can tell, as he has a blast down the start finish straight. 128.028, 129.028, my apologies. So that does put him in P3. So he has a battle with two Jamaicans in front of him so far. 7 minutes remaining, ladies and gentlemen, and Jaden Harrison is still going faster. I'm noticing Amanda Hanley disconnecting and reconnecting, so maybe having some issues there with his joining of the service. So I'm hoping that he can rectify whatever issues he has. But as it stands, Jaden Harrison there looking very rapid and is going to be the man that we will have to beat here this evening. But 128.091 is provisional pole, and ladies and gentlemen, he is still improving, 2/10 up. Santino again is the driver we'll continue to ride along board with, but as well is Ignacio in, well, P4 with a 130.770 and is improving on his lap. So will he be able to even stick it to any of the drivers ahead of him? He needs about a second to clear the drivers in front of him, so he will have some work to do. And Jaden Harrison still very much so improving on his lap. Santino is the man that we are going to be watching for now, who will be the driver to beat, ladies and to put as much of an attack on the two Jamaicans ahead of him at least. And he's looking very tidy here, coming around that little chicane, and right here is where you're going to see a lot of drivers making or losing some time, because that is where one of the heavy braking zones of this track are. And there is Jaden Harrison now setting a blisteringly fast lap with a 127.644. So he clearly had his homework done, knew who he had to compete with. I know we've been speaking all week about who his biggest competitor was, and it did look like it's going to be Santino. Qualifying pace is one thing, race pace is another, but there goes Santino now on the start finish straight, and his best lap was always on that start finish stretch in sector 3. So he will definitely be trying his best to see where he can gain an advantage here in this evening's qualifying session. ladies and gentlemen, that was a very quick lap there by Santino, finishing off his final qualifying lap. And does sit now in P2. Michael McNamee as well was looking rapid in sector 1, but failed in sector 2. He brings that car home, and it looks Jaden is even looking like he could even be improving. As a matter of fact, as he's now a 10th up in sector 2, but maybe getting a little bit too much rotation there in the ending part of that corner. I just saw him looking a little bit twisty and twirly, but will he be able to improve? It would be by a mere fraction of a second, but there he is coming around the final start finish, or final corner, my apologies. He does have Matteo Restrepo right there in the rear end behind him. And as I see the chats by Dav, these cars sound mental, because they are absolutely mental. 127.642, so 2 tenths slower on that lap than he had in previously set. And here comes Matteo now, retiring that car, maybe saying that he wasn't going to improve, and now sits in P5, as well as I'm believing Santino should be heading into the pits, or is he? Or this may be his final lap now to finish up. After this, it would send him straight to the pits or anything. But that being said, 129.334, that should be the final lap for for everybody. And we will go racing in only a moment's time. We will have one safety car rolling start, after which we will have a 2-hour endurance series. We do have some new drivers joining us, some that unfortunately did not get to do their qualifying session, but that being said, the drivers are still going to be pushing it out in the next few moments. And ladies and gentlemen, they're just briefing the drivers, giving any reminders. But there, that being said, Jaden Harrison will be leading from P1 in the LMH cars. Let me just give a quick reminder to the drivers. One moment, please. Right, so Jaden Harrison will be leading the pack from P1 for the LMH cars, followed by Santino Franco Davicio in P2 of Argentina. Michael McNamee, of Jaden Harrison's teammate this evening, will be sitting in P3. Ignacio of Argentina, another Zonda Racing driver, in P4. Matteo Restrepo in P5 of Colombia will be the final LMH car. Estefano Barrero, already seeing his father out there in the chat, rooting for him to win, sits in P1, right ahead of Kurt Moss in P2 of Jamaica. Ramiro Dominguez of Panama in P3, Javier Brandao in P4, Roger Kello in P5, Rohey Robinson in P6, Rolando Ramos in P7, Kimani Eastman in P8, Emmanuel Aguilar in P9, Joel Santamaria in P10, Amanda Hanley in P11, Sebastian Rodriguez finishes off the queue in P11. We have Nicholas Donald driving the safety car for this evening in that very beautifully themed Honda Porsche 99 Turbo S. This is our official safety car for the season, and we are looking forward to many more in it. But that being said, we will see the safety car lead the queue in only a moment's time, and in that moment the drivers will already be rearing and getting ready to go racing. But what a absolute spectacle of a qualifying session. Jaden Harrison was the last winner of the LMH class, and guess what? Santino was the last finisher or winner of the GT3 class, and he won by an exuberant amount. So he definitely will be one that we'll be watching this evening. And I personally am looking forward to this battle between these two. The drivers won't be moving off until that safety car there in the distance heads out and passes the drivers. They will be the one leading the pack. We have 2 hours, an extra 5 minutes just for the drivers to get their driving underway. And they're making a little bit of a mishap there, but there the safety car will be passing by, and there goes Nicholas Donald, and the drivers will be following after. And ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 hours of racing in only a moment's time. Jaden Harrison leads from Santino Franco, Ignacio in P3, Estefano should be coming up, going down a little bit, because he's leading the GT3 class and not the LMHs. But that being said, what happened to the 2 LMH cars right there behind them? So I'm definitely trying to figure out what's happening there. Michael McNamee needs to catch up. Sounds like a game freeze, which caused him to drop now to the back of the pack, so from P3 all the way down to P5. So I'm sure he'll be trying his best to see if he can gain back as many positions as quickly as possible, hopefully as safely as possible. But there is Mr. Nicholas Donald there in that beautiful safety car, and he will be making his way to the pits in a moment's time. But we will go racing in a moment's time. As we now have Black Flag Racing, the drivers will be linking up in the double file as we speak. GT3 should be at about 60 kilometers now, as these drivers will definitely be trying to separate the mix. And the LMHs will go on green light once they get the green flag racing. And the racing will go this time as the drivers are just inching and getting ready to go. Jaden Harrison there, you can see him there just very antsy with the throttle, just ready to get racing as quickly as possible. But we will get green light racing in only a moment's time. Sit here speaking, it is now green light racing, and the LMHs have gone off, and they are already going into turn one. Are the LMHs? A bit of confusion there, but as we said to them earlier, the driving will have some penalties coming, or drivers will have some penalties coming their way. We just ride along board now with Kurt Moss, who's sitting in P2, covering off the Panama driver in P1. But that quickly will be just taking a look at Mr. Jaden Harrison and Santino Franco. The LMH cars are definitely enjoying themselves there. Jaden Harrison trying to cover off the car behind him. Michael already making up one position and is sitting in P3 in the LMH class. Again, we did have slated 29 drivers. Unfortunately, majority did miss, so we do miss quite a few of them, but nonetheless these drivers will definitely be looking to put on a brilliant show here this evening in the LMH and the GT3 class. There you can see Santino there just lurking and utilizing as much of the slipstream as possible, as the two will now head into turn one side by side. Jaden going defensive immediately, and will Santino make that move stick early? No, he will not. Jaden covers it off, tries to push Mr. Santino as wide as possible, and these two are already putting on a battle in the early stages of the race. Jaden Harrison there, brilliant defense, as the two will be fighting to out. Michael McNamee did lose back up position, so what happened there maybe went off a little bit. But that being said, we will ride along board now with the GT3 cars as Kurt Moss leads Ramiro Dominguez, and I'm sure we'll be definitely trying to keep as much pace as possible in front of that driver ahead. But now we'll just continue with the Argentinian ahead of them in the LMH session. My apologies, Santino there just lurking there in the rear view mirror of Jaden Harrison. Armando immediately taking his drive through because he jumped the start, unfortunately. But that being said, I'm sure he'll be definitely trying to make up as many positions as possible. But the GT3 cars right now are the ones who we will be taking a brief look at, as the Panama driver Rolando Ramos sits in the rear view of Javier Brandao, who's sitting in the rear view of Roger Robinson. So two Panama drivers, one Jamaican stuck in a sandwich between himself, Javier Brandao and Rolando. So he will definitely be trying his best to see where he can defend or maybe even mount an attack, but he has that Panama driver there right in the rearview mirror. The Jamaican is currently residing in Japan, so he is definitely just waking up. As a matter of fact, as you can see, the sky getting brighter and brighter as the race ensues. It's now about 5:30 in the morning over there, and we'll definitely be seeing the sky get brighter and brighter as the racing continues. Michael McNamee there definitely looking like he's trying to make some moves and try and catch back up as quickly as possible, because he's just falling off the pace more and more. Javier Brandao coming off the Jamaican. I'm sure the two will be trying to fight it out and see who can hold off that Jamaican right behind. But Rohey Robinson has two Panama drivers, one Jamaican and a Colombian in front of him. A lot of work this evening, as he did look like he had pace early stages. I'm sure we'll be trying to make back up that time as quickly as possible. Estefano looking very comfortable now in ahead and just trying to keep the pace away from the drivers behind. Kurt Moss as well making his way away from the drivers behind him. So Rohey Robinson now looking like the closest battle on the field, and I'm sure we'll be definitely trying to keep up and see where he can maybe use strategy to gain a little extra position here or there in the dying moments. But the race has just begun. This is an endurance, not a sprint race, so we'll only see what will happen in a moment's time. Sure what happened there with Estefano. He had a very good lead and now sits in P2 and will be on the hunt for Mr. Massive in front of him as he now makes a move on the Panama driver from GT Panama, Mr. Ramiro Dominguez. So we did miss out on whatever would have happened there, but you know, hunts down Mr. Massive in front of him. Will definitely be trying to see if he can mount back an attack and gain back that position. He was in the 37s, so he is the fastest GT3 car there out on track. I'm sure he'll be enjoying a little bit more excitement now as he will be hunting down the drivers in front of him. He's now about a second off of Mr. Massive in front of him, and Kirk, who we all know is very cool, calm and collected, will definitely be trying his best to see if he can maintain that position and he can just defend. But if that's being said, he will have a 1 hour and 53 minutes remaining to hound off the charging Colombian driver behind him. So we know how that goes, and we know that won't be an easy feat, but nonetheless the drivers will be pushing as hard as possible to see who can defend, who can win, who can just be as consistent as possible. This race is not about necessarily speed, but by the consistency of the driver Estefano Barrero. We drive along board with now under a second behind the Jamaican driver. And as we said, that NSX is rapid, but while it's rapid, it's also very inconsistent. It can be very twitchy in the rear end, so you know he will, well, if you're pushing, you'll definitely see where the time may be lost there. Not even going in the slipstream, you may be seeing that he wouldn't get that much of an advantage, but just sticks to racing line and is now still very much so on the hunt for Mr. Kurt Moss in front of him. 139.086 time, 39.6 for Mr. Massive. Santino there falling off the pace a little bit, just by about not too far, but just taking his time, maybe doing a little bit of time management or field management at this point. But that being said, the driving has just been phenomenal, and as you see there, Estefano here going a little bit wide. Drivers will have 5 track cuts to contend with, so you don't want to use too much too early. But not that being said, these drivers know what they're doing. Who am I to say anything? But there he's right there, ready for the hunt, right on the rear end of the Jamaican driver and basically pushing him through. They are in the same livery, but no, they are not on team, ladies and gentlemen, as he does go a very wide there. Kurt Moss hugs the inside line and will protect that on moving into this next section. This is the section where we're going to see a lot of drama, as the drivers will basically be just trying to utilize as much of the track to gain an advantage, but how much is too much? As we see Estefano there in the slipstream, maybe in the dirty air, just not getting a good exit there and just a little bit too quick on the throttle, but there he is just sticking there on the slipstream and trying to fight it out for as long as he can. Ladies and gentlemen, what will come in the next few moments, only time will tell. In time until a little bit of overtaking with not just the GT3 but also with another LMDh car. Mattia there goes on the inside and dives, but the two now fight it out as they continue. The Colombian versus the Argentinian, who will come victorious as it stands. Mattia looking very promising here in these stages, makes a move stick and moves on with his life. Ignacio will have some work to do to keep up, but we've seen him with pace. His last up with a 32.4 and 32.3 was 1.4 Ignacio, so we'll definitely enjoy what will come in the next few moments. But guess what, that's putting in Michael McNamee is now seeing the action right there in front of him unfold. And he's not one that he did start in P3. I'm sure will definitely be trying his best to see if he can gain back that position in the drivers ahead of him, and will be pushing to try and catch back up to that mix right in front of him. But Estefano Barrero, not sure what had happened there with him, but now I'm noticing that he is sitting down in P11, so he's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 P6 in class, and I'm sure he'll be definitely kicking himself. Not sure what had happened, but any penalties that will be to come will definitely be looked at after the race. Couldn't tell you what had happened at that time, but there they overtake the likes of Mr. Kanani Eastman. There is Michael McNamee just taking a look on the inside, being very patient. Knows he has the pace, and these are the two drivers that he will be fighting it out with, so these drivers will definitely be enjoying their next few moments together, or maybe not so much enjoying it, but definitely enjoy the battling as he comes now on the rear end of Ignacio in that LMH in that Porsche LMH car driven for RB Racing Birds team. Jaden Harrison is in P1, that is his teammate, and those two will be definitely trying to fight it out for the majority to see who can gain an advantage. But these drivers are going to put on what a battle in the next few moments. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen, there's traffic on the way as well. As you can see, Jaden Harrison there and Santino are going through a little bit of mix for themselves, but nonetheless they should be clearing the traffic down with this final corner and heading into turn 1. But that being said, Michael McNamee still pushing to see where he can get, and Kurt Moss should have just been overtaken by the race leader. So that is the GT3 class leader and the LMH class leader now being overtaken, as we see who is that, Mr. Ramiro Dominguez in the background, just lurking and waiting for any mistakes by the Jamaican in front of him. Matteo and Ignacio are the ones that will be enjoying this battle now, as long with Mr. McNamee now just waiting and pouncing, sitting there in the slipstream waiting, just taking a look, just to remind these drivers, hey, I am here. And there goes a little bit of coasting into the corner, not to push or work the tires too much. And there goes Ignacio taking that P3 position right back. And Michael McNamee, I believe, did take that. No, he did not, but does take a look to see maybe if he can gain that position on the Colombian in front of him. But Matteo will definitely trying to defend as best as possible and keep it as clean. There's 3 Porsches right here. I think majority of these cars this evening will be Porsches. There's only one BMW, which is driven there by Ignacio and I believe Santino. Yep. So there's 2 BMWs and 3 Porsche LMDh cars. So we'll definitely enjoy what is to come. We're noticing Rohir Robinson there being the first driver in the pits. I'm not sure if maybe he had some damage or if he is just, this is his strategy, only time will tell. We did see something similar with him in the last race that resulted in him finishing in P4, so maybe his strategy is a little bit unorthodox, but maybe we know something that we don't know, folks. So 15 minutes in, and I'm sure he will definitely trying to keep his cool for the majority of this race, but we hopefully will see him come back out on track. Still see him in the pits with 15 minutes elapsed. I'm sure that's not his first or the first retirement of the race, but yeah, with 2 hours to go, I think I see him driving out, but only time will tell. Is that him driving out? No, he's still there, very much so in the pits. So that being said, we'll just continue to ride along board with Mr. Michael McNamee and Matteo and Ignacio. And it looks as if Michael maybe lost a little bit of footing there and gained, or lost a little bit to the 2 cars ahead of him. So I'm sure he will, he wants to, and will be trying his best to try and keep or catch back up, so the time will tell. That seems that we have right now right in front of Estefano, who was coming back through the pack and trying to get back up to the top step to saw the 2, and just like the Red Sea, it just parted for him and he just made his way through. And here comes the Calypso, now sits in P3 in his class, and he's heading up to try and catch back up to the 2 ahead of him. The Panama driver of Ramiro Dominguez and Kurt Moss are not putting a foot wrong, as these drivers now being overtaken by the traffic. And again with that BMW, he does stand a better chance with these LMDh cars. You know, they don't want to hit into a bigger big tank, as that BMW can just be very menacing in the forefront of your vehicle. But there's Estefano still not very far ahead, 6 seconds to the car ahead of him, so I'm sure he will definitely be trying his best to see where he can gain back an advantage and at least get to the second step of the podium. He has 1 hour and 42 minutes to go. I'm guessing he will try his best, push now, and then maybe go long on the second stint. So we'll only time will tell at this point, but we still will watch to see how these drivers will be strategizing in these next few stages. But Estefano will have to keep it clean and tidy if he wants a chance to catch back up to the pack in front of him. Santino there did lose a little bit of pace to Jaden Harrison, so Jaden clearly just being as consistent. He was 3/10 quicker on that last lap, and I'm sure he will definitely just be trying to keep up that pace. And it doesn't make sense. I saw him as low as a 128. Doesn't make sense pushing too hard too early, because at this point 128.831 was his best lap of the race so far. If you're lapping about a second and change faster than the car behind you, then it makes no sense pushing. He's now 5/10 clear of the car behind him, and Santino is there just trying to maybe even just maintain his tires at this point. We know he's rapid, and I'm looking forward to that battle between himself and Jordan in the next few moments, so only time will tell. But Ignacio still being hunted by Matteo. Matteo now under threat by Michael McNamee as the 2 head down into turn 1. You can see the effects of the slipstream there as they're closing in on the next driver ahead, and there goes Matteo on the inside, makes that move stick. Is it too late? No, it is not, and he looks like he's made that move into P3. Michael McNamee now getting into the action, heads down now into the fast left-hander, and Michael McNamee just looking out, and there they go. Extremely wide was Ignacio, and that will put him out of the battle. 4P3, and now Michael will only have the 1 driver ahead of him to try and catch back up to, as you see some of the GT3 cars coming through now to try and pass him. Michael McNamee will have the likes of Mr. Matteo in front of him to keep up with it and try and maybe make counter attack in the mid stages, maybe even make counter attack in the pits as a strategy to try and get a little advantage here or there on the driver. Rohir Robinson still in the pits, looking like he's retiring that car. He's now 4 laps under, as well as Emmanuel Aguilar, and unfortunately those two look like the first 2 retirements of this evening, and it's sad to see because the numbers weren't that great, but still nonetheless we appreciate them joining and having as much fun as they can when they can. So we will continue to ride along board. Estefano still very much so on the hunt for Ramiro in front of him, and Ramiro is not pulling away as much as he would have wanted, I'm sure. But we'll still continue to monitor that. Kurt Moss there as well, just being as consistent. Each of these drivers are about the same time away, but Kurt is going to be hoping, we're pushing for sure as much as he can to try and keep that Colombian and Panama driver right there in his rear view and not in his foreview. But I'm sure he will be cognizant of the fact he's looking very rapid as well. 139.560, very good race pace there, about a second slower than Estefano's best, but still Estefano lapping at about 138.8 was his last lap, and I'm sure he's going to continue pushing, so 2/10 per lap. Kurt was 140.3 on his last lap as well, as Ramiro was 139.66, so he will definitely have a load of work this evening as that Colombian of Estefano heads down now in the rear view mirror. Now this is a fight for the podium between the GT3 class. Estefano started on pole position. We didn't miss out on what had happened, but still we'll continue to ride on more and hopefully get some more action in the next few moments as these drivers will be pushing as far as the eyes can see. Estefano is rapid and still will be improving more and more as he goes along. So now it's just about consistency and keeping it as clean as possible to try and catch back up to the pack ahead of him. P4 and P3 in the LMH class still battle it out. Michael McNamee going for the move on Matteo and makes that move stick to be promoted now into P3, and the two will be fighting it out now to head to see how or who will be the victor. Now Michael needs to be consistent. He has shown that he's had pace, but now it's just about keeping it clean and try and avoid any drama with the GT3 classes as you see him there going on the inside, and Matteo there now hunting down the Jamaican, and at this point it's just about keeping it clean, keeping up as close as possible and force a mistake on that Jamaican ahead of him. So who will come up victorious, only time will tell, as we've said in very multiple successions. But there we see Matteo there late on the brakes trying to keep up as close to the Jamaican driver ahead of him, who will come out. But that brilliantly themed, and I think it was Jaden Harrison that designed that livery. Porsche will be pushing his behind all the way throughout the track to make sure he can sustain that position and at least stay in the podium position, get as many points for the team as possible, and head now out to finish as we've just finished or closing out the first 30 minutes of this race. Dominguez and makes quick work of that BMW and moves up now into P2 in his class, and it didn't look too difficult for him. Just stuck a nose and said, "Sir, make my way and make it as easy as possible." Estefano moves now into P2 in his class and will be hunting down Mr. Kurt Moss, only 3.2 seconds behind him, and he does see the Colombian there coming out of the final corner right there in his rearview mirror. Ramiro, I'm sure, will even be using him as best as possible to even pull him through. So maybe that was his strategy, pull me through as best as possible, maybe even go a little bit longer is Ramiro's thoughts right now, and try and use strategy to win and make his way through in the final positions. But if this continues, this battle for the top three could go on until the end of this race, especially between Estefano and Kurt Massive, as the two will be fighting it out in only a few moments time. Kurt is now doing just at a 39.258, which is his best lap of the race. Estefano is at a 139.116, so that's about 0.6 off his personal best. We'll watch and see as that 2.2 second gap has gone to about 2.7 seconds. So Kurt we'll have some defense to go on again in only a few moments time, and we have not reached the first halfway point as yet, or half hour point, my apologies. So Kurt will definitely have a long race to go as the charging Colombia now heads down on to head to him. Ramiro Dominguez as well, just sitting down waiting for his moment to shine as well. Javier Brandao has had a quiet race, but he's now sitting in P4. As who was that? I'm not sure who that was, as there's some driver that went off track. But Javier now sits in P4 and he's just had a brilliant race. He did have a little incident earlier with one of the drivers there with I believe it was, let me not call it the names, it could have been Rohir Robinson, which is what resulted in his DNF, but we'll hear from him after the race. But Javier Brandao now is about 15 seconds off of P3 off the podium, but anything can happen with that 0 and 32 minutes remaining. Damage is set to 70%, so it's not like you need to retire the car. You can make your way back home. However, will it make sense is what most of the drivers will be considering, I'm assuming. Well, in the early stages it does make sense, obviously, but in the latter stages maybe not so much. But Javier has been very consistent so far. His best lap being a 39.8, but he's been lapping at about a 41.40 point low for the last few laps. So we'll continue to ride along board to see where he can finish up in this race. Roger Kello, the Swiss driver, not making the inroads that he would want either, but he has been one of the most improved drivers here at the JSRA. So very much so a pleasure to see him racing on board with us. As always, there is Rolando Ramos. He was the one that I saw in the incident with Mr. Javier Brandao earlier, and sorry or sad to see, but these two are countrymen, to call it, and you know, seeing those mistakes happen, it just breaks your heart. But that being said, we'll continue to ride along board. Jane Harrison, the race leader, followed by Santino. Franco has a little bit of traffic in front of him. He dominated the GT2 class, not finding as much luck this evening in the LMH class, but still with a lot of time remaining, Jaden Harrison has just been rapid throughout the session, and I'm seeing another retirement there from the LMH class from Ignacio, and that is unfortunate because he had put on such a battle until that incident with himself and Matteo. But that battle between Matteo, Michael and Ignacio was definitely one that we did certainly enjoy. But Stefano, the man who we'll be watching for the next few moments as he heads down now and closes in on the Jamaican of Kurt Moss. Kurt Moss being one of our most consistent Jamaican drivers. He misses as little bit of races as he can possibly miss, but nonetheless he races and enjoys the fruits of his labor, and there he will be defending in the next few moments as Stefano will be hunting down the Jamaican. Kurt Moss having a little bit of traffic there in front of him. Who is that? As they pull to the side, did that slow him down just enough for Stefano to get back into the mix, but there they go out of the way, and now Kurt will have the charging Colombian there right in the rear view mirror of his car. I'm sure we'll be hoping and praying that he will get as much to defend against as possible, as we see Jaden Harrison there now setting another fastest lap of the race with a 1:28.753. Amando Hanley getting a drive-through now for cutting. Unfortunate for him there because the drivers do get 5 cuts before they get a drive-through, so that is his 5th. And that is how easy a race can go sideways if the drivers aren't focusing on what they're doing. So definitely something to look forward to in the next few moments. Stefano now on the rear end of Mr. Kurt Moss in front of him. And this is where things are going to get very interesting, if I do say so myself, as Stefano is going to be breathing down the rear end of that Honda NSX, and I'm sure the two will be great friends at the end of this race, as the two will be side by side or neck and neck throughout the majority. And there goes Kurt Moss, going a little bit too wide, and maybe the pressure getting the best of him, and Stefano now moves up into P1 in the class and makes that move stick on the likes of Mr. Kurt Moss in front of him, and Kurt will now have to be the one chasing and not the one following, leading, my apologies, and I'm sure we'll be pushing to see where he can gain back and try and catch back up, but no, sits in P2. Stefano started on pole, made a mistake early in the race. Not sure what that happened. Cold tires are a factor because there are no tire blankets here this evening, so it could have been that we did miss out on what had happened, so not entirely sure, but nonetheless makes his way back up into P1 in the class and will be sitting quite comfortable as he heads now to fight it out for the next hour and a half of racing. should now be heading into the first set of pit stops sooner than later, as the tanks in those LMDh cars should be emptying out more and more tire degradation. Now is where we'll see a little bit of strategy come into play, as these drivers have been going for almost about an hour 50 minutes to be exact. So we do have an hour and 10 minutes remaining in this session. As it stands, Jaden Harrison is still very much so comfortable in P1, actually heading up now to P3 on the LMDh. So he will be lapping his first LMDh car in a moment's time. He's already lapped his teammate, his teammate did enter into the pits, so he should be by the time coming out of the pits should be right there with his teammate Mr. McNamee. But that being said, Jaden Harrison is comfortably sitting out in the top step of the podium. Again, he did win the last race. He and Dominic Charles put on what a spectacle of a battle. Fortunately, missing out on that action this evening, and we'll be missing out on them in this evening's race. But that being said, the battling is still not over. An hour and 10 minutes remaining in this session. Santino still very much so up for grabs. 4.2 sits very comfortable, and there is Jaden looking very wide. And again, just one drive-through penalty can cause these drivers to lose out so much. So we gain an advantage, and then we can just easily give it up in a moment's time. Jaden has been pushing. 129.678 was his last time. Uses the slipstream there off the GT car. It was Javier Brandao. He just passed and now comes along to lap 130.255, looking very comfortable here. Javier as well, trying to see where he can place in the next few moments. Kirk Moss there is in P3, and he was in P2 behind Estefano, but made a slight mistake there, but now catches back up slowly but surely to the likes of Mr. Dominguez, playing further than the Panama driver, who has not put one foot wrong, but still the two will be fighting it out for that second step of the podium. What do you call it? The pit stops should be coming into play sooner than later, as the driving will continue on to go in the next few moments. 1 hour and 8 is remaining, and again we should see some pit stops sooner or later. I'll continue to watch along and see where these strategies will start to come in. I'm guessing some drivers doing a little bit of fuel saving to see if they can last as long as just doing one pit stop for the race. Maybe there will be ones doing two. Michael McNamee was one of them that did take an early pit stop. Will he be trying to go for an undercut? Too far away from Santino for the undercut, but he was one of the first persons to go on pit stop, and he will just go in for that one pit stop for the race. Matteo in front of the Colombian driver is very much comfortable as it stands, so I'm sure the strategy will definitely play a part in that final battle for P3 in the LMDh class. Estefano and Estefano leading by a very confident margin, by about 18 seconds to Mr. Dominguez behind him, and then the next driver behind Mr. Dominguez is Mr. Massive, who is now on the hunt. 1.4 seconds is the gap, and I'm sure he'll be definitely trying to close that as quickly as possible. It was about 7 seconds when the incident happened, and now it has just made his way slowly but surely, just inching closer and closer to the Panama driver as they head down into the halfway point of this race. Kurt will definitely not be one to settle for that P2 position, I'm sure, as I've seen him in the past just take out that time one lap at a time. It makes no sense to rush it. His best lap was a 139.212. His last lap was a 39.534. Who was that I saw? That was Michael McNamee sitting on the side of the road, and there he goes, teleports back to the pits, and that could be his race undone. Just saw him there on the side view, so not sure exactly what had happened to him, but that would definitely be messing with his race this evening. and that P3 position just goes right through the door. 1 hour remaining. That's such a pity with 55 minutes remaining, and what a battle it was turning out to be for P3. So sad to see that we will exit the pits again, but not sure what happened there. We saw him on the side. I'm guessing it couldn't be gas, but he was one of the only drivers to pit this evening, so we'll definitely continue to ride along and watch to see what will happen. And I'm not sure what had happened there, folks.
You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order. You've seen almost exponentially more contact between these rivals than in the first race. Had or brand new sponsor Ceramic Hair been a part of this competition, they'd have been getting quite the work order.
What is it?
And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to apologize profusely, as it seems our servers in Philadelphia have crashed and there's no way to get them back. So it's for this evening at least. So we are going to have to reschedule this race, or call it quits and call it this as the final points positions, depending on where the driver was placed before the server outage. Unfortunately, this is the trials of sim racing. These are the trials of sim racing, but nonetheless, we do appreciate that you stayed back with us for as long as you could up until this moment. It was such a battle. It was brewing up to be. We're going to have to investigate to see what happened. It's looking like there might be some weather issues in Philadelphia, maybe an outage where our servers are. So unfortunately, we will be calling it an end to the night. Stay tuned to our social media. We are heartbroken. The drivers are not the happiest at the moment, and I'm completely understanding of why, but nonetheless, it is something out of our control and something that we just have to look forward and look past. But that being said, thank you for spending your Saturday evening so far with us, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an absolute pleasure covering this race so far, but this has been a little bit of a damper, but nonetheless, thank you so much for joining us. Follow us on Instagram at JSRA official, and I'm sure we'll get more drivers in the next few moments, or in the final round, as we will be tackling Bahrain in the next stage of our endurance series. We'll also have the CTCC series starting back and the French Tour, so something that we're definitely looking forward to in the next few moments. So stay tuned. We apologize for the abrupt finish and end to this race, but nonetheless, this is sim racing. We look forward and we'll continue to look forward to bringing you more action as the season comes to a conclusion. I've been your host, Stephen Stewart. Looking forward to many more to entertain you with the brilliant sound of my voice as much as we can. But by the next time you guys do see us here at the final endurance series, I should have a very competent running mate that I am looking forward to starting with as we are starting to move to our new location. But once everything has been solidified, we will definitely send out all the information. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for spending your time with us this evening. I'm again absolutely apologetic that this is how it had to end, but we will be back and better with our action sooner than later. Thank you. I've been so happy to bring this action to you. I've been your host, Stephen Stewart. Have a good evening.